As far as life and development in the equatorial region is concerned, equatorial region are generally sparsely populated because these areas are, you know, have a very heavily densely forest. That's why these areas are very sparsely populated. In the forest, most primitive people live as a hunter and collectors, and more advanced one practice shifting cultivation. So most of the people are actually engaged in either in the hunting or in collecting the forest product, and those people who are a little bit more advanced, they practice the shifting cultivation. We will talk about how the what exactly the shifting cultivation is, and how exactly this is not good for the environment also. The food is so abundant in such a habitat that many people worry very little about the life of the next day. There are numerous animal, birds, and reptiles that can be hunted to serve the need of the communities. The ever-flowing river and streams provide the inexhaustible supply of fishes that the people spear or trap. From the forest, they gather leaves, fruits, nuts, and other forest products. In Amazon Basin, the Indian tribe collect wild rubber. In Congo Basin, the pygmy gather nuts, and in jungle of Malaysia, orang asli makes all sorts of cane project product and sell them to people in village and town. In the clearing for shifty cultivation crop like manioc, uh, yam, maize, banana, and groundnuts are grown. When the fertility is exhausted, then the clearings is abundant and they move to a new plot. Such farming practices are becoming more and more widespread even among the backward tribes. So what this shifting cultivation is there is first they will clear this patch, they will clear the patch, and they will grow like some tuber crops like uh, manioc or yams, maize. So these crops, so once they will remove the tree cover, then they cannot actually practice the cultivation over this land for a long period of time, because the moment they cut the tree, then because of the heavy downpours, all the nutrients are leached down. So all the nutrients will be leached down, and that's why this soil will become infertile within a very short period of time. And that's why they after having taken 2 3 crops in this area, they will clear another patch. They will clear another patch, and again they will start practicing the agriculture here. Later on, once this plot will also get exhausted, then they will cut another patch, and that's how ultimately, after some period of time, they will again come back to this place, because by that time, this soil may have actually uh, gathered its fertility, because when you keep any land fallow, then automatically it actually regain its fertility. But the type of plant that will come up in these areas will be secondary type of forest, which we have just talked about in this chapter itself, which is known as belukar in Indonesia and Malaysia. So these are a shifting cultivation that these tribal tribes spread. With the coming of European, many large plantations have been established, especially in Java, Sumatra, Malaysia, West Africa, and Central America. Because when these foreign settlers came to these areas, then they established a lot of plantation uh, on a commercial basis, because these areas are very favorable for some of the crops like uh, Climate has proved to be very favorable for the cultivation of certain crops that are highly valued in the industrial West. The most outstanding is the natural rubber. Natural rubber, although it's called as heavy substances, though it was first discovered in the wild state as a para rubber in the Amazon basin. It has since been transplanted to other parts of the equatorial land and is grown very profitably on a large estate. Malaysia and Indonesia are the leading producers, each accounting for more than a third of the world production. So, the home country Brazil export practically no natural rubber. The problem of the tree disease and the lack of commercial organization of the red Indians in the Amazon lowland has brought about this unexpected shift of rubber cultivation. Another tropical crop that has achieved an amazing success is cocoa. Extensively cultivated. It is most extensively cultivated in the West Africa. Accra, Kumasi, Takoradi area. This is a triangle. This is known for cocoa production. The two most important producers are Ghana and Nigeria. There is a keen demand for the crops and average acreage are rapidly on the increase. Most of the crops leave West Africa for Europe or North America for the cocoa production, for the cocoa and chocolate industries. So these crops are basically moves to the North America or Europe for the cocoa and chocolate industries. From the same area, another crop, oil palm, has done equally well, especially in Nigeria and many countries outside Africa have now taken to its cultivation. Another crop that have been found suitable for the hot, very equatorial climate and are extensively cultivated are coconut sugar, coffee sugar. You know that Cuba is famous for sugar in these equatorial areas. Coffee is grown in Brazil, tea in many countries of Africa, and tobacco, spices, cinchona, which is used for the making what is called as our quinine, bananas, pineapple, and sago. These are the some tropical crops which is being grown in this hot and wet equatorial type of climate. So, what are the factors that affect the development in this region? Definitely, as we have already talked about equatorial climate and health. Excessive heat and high humidity, these are very favorable for insect and pest. Man is subject to serious physical and mental handicaps. He perspire profusely and lose vigor and energy in such an enervating environment. He exposed himself to such a dangerous sunstroke, to such disease as malaria and yellow fever. Consequently, his capacity for active work is greatly reduced and his resistance to disease is much weakened. Unless there is adequate provision for satisfactory sanitization, physic, satisfactory sanitation, physical and mental health are bound to be affected. Nowadays, malaria eradication schemes are in progress in most of the tropical areas, and vaccines have been developed to counteract the disease. Another factor is prevalence of bacteria, insect, and pest. The hot, wet climate, which stimulates rapid plant growth, also encourages spread of the insect and pest, as germs and bacteria are more easily transmitted through the moist air. Equatorial conditions are ideal for the survival of such organisms, which we have already talked about. Insect and pest not only spread disease but are also injurious to crops. They plague both man and animal. Jungle hinder development and maintenance. Jungle is so luxuriant that it is quite a problem to clear a small patch of it, and even more difficult to maintain it. The lalang, the tall grass and thick undergrowth spring up as soon as the shade tree are cut. That we have already talked about. The moment you cut the tree, then immediately the undergrowth will start taking place. And this undergrowth basically choke the what is this undergrowth basically uh, this undergrowth springs up as soon as the shade tree are cut, and unless they are weeded at regular interval, they may choke the crops and overwhelm the estates. In the same way, roads and railways constructed through the equatorial land have to cut through the forest, dense thickets, and swamps, and those who build and maintain them encounter wild animal, poisonous snake, and insects. Once completed, they have to be maintained at a high cost. Many remote parts of the Amazon basin, the Congo and Borneo, are without modern communication lines. The river forms the only natural highway. Then the fourth is rapid deterioration of the tropical soil. It is a misconception that the tropical soil are rich in its virgin untouched state due to heavy leaf fall and the decomposition of leaves by bacteria, because see the temperature is very high, that's why bacterial activity in this place is also very high. So the moment these leaves fall onto the ground, the bacteria actually decompose these leaves to form a humus. A thick mantle of humus makes the soil fairly fertile. This is clear from the shifting cultivators heavy cropping in their newly cleared ladang. But once the humus is used and the natural vegetation cover is removed, the torrential downpours soon wash out most of the soil nutrient. The soil deteriorates rapidly with subsequent soil erosion and soil impoverishment. So these things we have already talked about that once the torrential rainfall takes place, then all the nutrients are leached down and making the soil infertile. So that's how the moment that you cut the tree, the soil become deteriorates rapidly. With subsequent soil erosion and soil impoverishment, one may quote the Indonesian island of Java as an exception. This Java island is an exception because here this soil is not is formed out of volcanic eruption. That's why you have a black soil in these places, and this soil is very fertile. So this is an exception in these areas. Because of its rich volcanic ash and the energetic local people. In Malaysia, Singapore, and eastern Brazil, much progress have been also been made in the development of tropical lands through the systematic planning and will of the people to succeed. Livestock farming is greatly handicapped by an absence of meadows grass. Because if you compare these grasses with the grasses that we have in temperate land, then these grasses are not as nutritious as these the grasses that we have in the temperate grassland. The another problem is that see in these places we don't have the very good breed because if you bring the jersey here in these areas it cannot survive. That's why these days some kind of crossbreed are being developed which can withstand the the hot and wet type of this type of climate, uh, uh, so that some kind of yield of milk can be increased. A few animals like buffalo, bullock are kept mainly as a beast of burden. The yield in milk is uh, or the beef is very well below those of the cattle in the temperate grassland. That's what we talked about. Just the grass is so tall and coarse that it is not nutritious. In Africa, domesticated animals are attacked by CC fly that cause nagna, a deadly disease. So these are the problems in animal husbandry also. This is what your equatorial hot and wet type of climate region is.